Hello viewers, my name is Adam, and this is Seeking Media Productions. In this video, I'll give you my review on the television series Bates Motel. Bates Motel lasted for 5 seasons of 50 episodes, and between the years 2013 and 2017, and aired on the A&E network through NBC Universal, because they had the rights to the Alfred Hitchcock film Psycho, which in of itself is based on the novel of the same name. Like its source material, the story revolves around Norman Bates, who suffers from mental illness of multiple personality disorder. In this series, him and his mother travels to Oregon in the little town of White Pine Bay to start a new life together. My brother, he did watch this series, but only for the first season. He basically couldn't deal with crazy, so at least not too much of it. And fortunate enough, the whole series revolves around Norman and his psychotic issues. But at least I came here because I found the story to be a good, refreshing take that's different from what was actually being shown on television recently. And as far as adaptation goes, I think is a good and well-deserved adaptation. Now, the first at least 3 seasons deals with Norman's breakdown, at least as an undercurrent plot line. The first season does a good job of balancing this plot, but with also fleshing out the setting, which is White Pine Bay, as well as introducing characters that will be important on throughout the series. But for at least in season 2 and 3, I feel as though that they get more of ahead of themselves with actually just dealing with every conflict that deals with the town. And I feel that every time that the show actually do focus on Norman's mental illness is a strong point. But it's not to say that the stuff that rolls around town is bad by any means. I feel as though it's not on par when they're actually telling that story. It's not until season 4 where Norman's mental illness takes a full effect throughout the story. And of course, what I like about the series is that eventually it does do I'd say an original take on the actual source material, which is based off of. For the characters that are involved in the series is of course Norman Bates, who is played by Freddie Highmore. I feel as though he does this amazing job portraying this character, especially someone of the same actor who played the role, Anthony Perkins. And I feel as though they are pretty much two sides of the same coin. Anthony Perkins, he developed more of a aggressive feel towards the character Norman Bates, while Freddie Highmore develops another perspective, from his innocence to his very reluctant nature to uphold the series. And because they made sure that Norman Bates is the full focus of the series, you'll see that a lot of the direction they take with the source material is character driven through him. Second, I would like to say that the actress Vera Farmiga, who played Norman's mother, Norma Bates, this is practically her standout role up until this point. She's usually a very working actress. Most people may know her from the Conjuring series. But from here, she puts a stamp on her acting abilities. And she shows a full range of her capabilities in this role of Norman Bates. The series does a good job introducing another aspect to the series, which is Dylan, Norman's half-brother. And they share the same mother, but due to complicated means, I'll actually delve into more taboo means is how this character is brought up. He is older than Norman, but he's like plays off that devil's advocate or the wild card character. He himself, he wants to distance himself from the family a lot, and most people can understand why. But the actor who plays him does a good job fleshing out the way he is given to portray this sympathetic character, despite have this rebellious side to him. Another major character throughout the series is the sheriff Alex Romero, who is played by Nestor Campbell. He does a lot of his good work in this series as well. He provides this counterbalance of grounding the series and its realism, pretty much calling out all the absurdities that happens throughout the series, and eventually becomes a conflict of interest for Norman. And of course, I would like to say another person who helps ground the material well is the character of Emma, who's introduced to the series in a very sad manner because she's a character who has this respiratory illness that causes her to breathe pretty poorly. And though she's walking around with this air tank, but luckily she's able to see a lot of optimism in her life, and she becomes a partner towards Norma and eventually part of the family because they adopt her as one of her own. Now, since this series is mainly based off the movie Psycho, a lot of production tried to evoke that same feeling that was in the film. This is mainly due to Norman and Norma Bates' costume design. They feel like they're in a whole other world themselves, like this old-timely 1960s type vibe, despite being set in a present-day era. They even managed to recreate the house that was also featured in the movie Psycho. Practically a very brick-by-brick like recreation. It was a really good job, and it's obviously a great focal point to the whole series. As well as the cinematography. The cinematography helped convey this very dark atmosphere, but it's also haunting and also had that dreamlike feeling. Like, it just sweeps you away from this very retro-like design and counteracting of this present-day scenario. And the music, the music is a little bit of a disappointment because one of the most important aspects of Psycho is the music. It's more, I'll say, serviceable at best. But it does try to convey that classic film orchestral sound throughout the series. And since it is a cable, they are able to get away with a lot of stuff, so the show doesn't have to worry about much about the violence because like Psycho itself, the series is at times quite violent, but not too violent to the point of being gratuitous. It's serviceable, it's tasteful, and I'll say it's like the same amount, like the level of violence just take up a notch than what the movie was able to do. Now, if I were to give this series a grade, I'll give it a good rating on our six-figure scale. And that's mainly because of the great cast that is involved in the series. Actors Freddie, Highmore, and Vera Farmiga, they deliver their best work in this series. Freddie Highmore especially because he himself becomes this all-other character. And that's a very commendable achievement in of itself because given that the actor has previously been featured in all these kid-friendly movies, he practically does his best character impression like he have ever done. And luckily enough, he was able to be a lot more involved in the series, from becoming a writer of one of the episodes and eventually becoming a director of one of the episodes as well. And Vera Farmiga, she does a whole range of her capabilities as an actress on herself. She is known by means a second weight to Freddie Highmore. Those two complete the series. But because the story does drags on in those first 3 seasons, the story itself is good. It's not great. It does a slow burn throughout, and it doesn't really pick up until season 4. And season 5 pretty much does its magnum opus to the source material, while also giving a great twist as well. And the production is good in itself. So I hope you like this video. Hopefully you want to watch this series. As I can recall, the series is on Netflix, and hopefully you can buy it on DVD if you want it. Feels though is a unique twist on the source material of Psycho, and a good companion if you want to compare the two. And as always, you can like, share, subscribe. Comment below if you want to give your thoughts about the series. My name is Adam, and this has been a Seeking Media production.